Hello and welcome to a Monday afternoon edition of Blind Eye Live. I'm your host, Hunter King, Blind Eye himself. I'm going to try and keep this show a little shorter than the morning show. Pardon me, jeez. Sorry, I'm dealing with some issues. I meant to go live about 10 minutes ago and did not pull that off, so sorry about that. If you're coming over here from my Twitter account, hey, what's up? So, we're going to be talking some NBA playoff stuff. We're also going to talk about some of the undrafted free agent signings, or I'm going to try and go through all of those. Not necessarily analyze every guy signed. That's not what I'm going to do, but talk about different teams and their just their hauls in general, how much impact I think we could see from them. And then we've also got some other news. We'll talk about Tyrann Mathieu signing with the Saints. The Falcons have cut Mike Davis, and holy crap! Let's go to this real quick. It's a headline, or this is the front page of ESPN right now, and you are seeing that right. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins banned 6 games. He's been sitting 6 games for violating the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. Well, that's interesting. I'm guessing he took something he shouldn't have in rehabbing. So that is huge news, which makes the Cardinals trading for Marquise Brown even more important right now. The New York Mets apparently have designated Robinson Cano for assignment. Let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, here's Saints. So the deal for Tyrann Mathieu is 3 years, $33 million. And basically, like Matthew said, he would have accepted a contract with the Chiefs that was 3 years, $31.5 million, which is what they gave Justin Reed. I get Reed's younger, but I'd rather chance Mathieu at this point. He's got a skill set and style of play at a position that ages well. I mean, let's see here. I'll announce this one. Former elite top recruit, former believed first round receiver back when he was before his spinal condition came to light going into the 2020 season that caused him to miss the 2020 college football season. Justin Ross has signed with the Chiefs. There's also the Steelers have declined Deion Bush's 5th-year option. I mean, he's had some injury stuff, but he's been good when healthy. Oh, wait, it's not Deion Bush, is it? What's Bush's first? Devin Bush. Linebacker Devin Bush. I'm kind of shocked to see that. I guess they'd rather deal with whatever contract maybe he earns at the end of the season. They might think they can get him at a yearly rate cheaper than his 5th-year option. Bama cornerback Eli Ricks was arrested. Speeding, marijuana. We'll see what that's about. And we're going to talk about this real quick, too. So, Brian Flores' lawyer argues against Roger Goodell arbitrating lawsuit versus NFL. Well, I mean, Goodell shouldn't arbitrate the lawsuit because, I mean, obviously, he's the boss of the NFL. That would be kind of a conflict of interest. That doesn't mean Goodell wouldn't come to the right conclusion on this stupid lawsuit. A lawyer for Brian Flores said to a judge Monday that arbitration is the wrong way to resolve a lawsuit that alleges racial racist hiring practices in the NFL, in part because League Commissioner Roger Goodell would be the arbitrator, and that would be unconscionable. Attorney Douglas Wigdor, there's a name, said the league was trying to force behind closed doors the claims of Flores and two other black coaches. None of the coaches were present for the Manhattan federal court hearing. Of course not. It was the first hearing for a lawsuit Flores filed in February when he claimed the league was rife with racism even as the NFL publicly condemns it. Flores was fired in January as head coach by the Miami Dolphins, leading the team to a 24-25 record over 3 years, with 2 straight winning seasons, including a 2021 season when a 9-8 record left them out of the playoffs. He has since been hired as an assistant coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Which, here's the thing. The Dolphins have failed to make the playoffs in any of those 3 years, and you can look at whatever, or you can say whatever you want. I believe Flores' decisions, while it got them to that level, I think some of his decisions kept them out of the playoffs. Including I think the 2021 team would have been better if Flores had committed stronger to Tua in 2020. And not continuously undermine Tua's confidence the last 2 years. Not to mention firing or going through 4 different offensive coordinators during those 2 years. You want to destroy a quarterback? That's how you do it. Simply put, I don't put a lot of stock in this lawsuit because I think it's a joke. I think it's a tantrum by Flores, and these other coaches have jumped on. I'm trying to remember the other 2 coaches. Let's see here. Ray Horton. Horton is a guy who everybody was excited about, and every time he has been hired as a defensive coordinator, the team's defense never got better. Like, he's never been good enough at his job to get good results as a defensive coordinator when he was a high-profile position coach. He was a up-and-coming guy, and his career bottomed out. And I'm not going to blame other people for that. I'm going to blame it, or obviously there are players involved, but Horton hadn't gotten a head coaching job. You want to know why? Because his defenses haven't performed. Steve Wilkes is the other guy. He was an okay defensive coordinator that I was shocked got hired by the Cardinals a few years ago. And that season went really poorly. And they decided that they were going to go quarterback at number 1 overall with Kyler Murray. Josh Rosen wasn't put in a great position to succeed, but they determined they wanted Cliff Kingsbury, an offensive-minded coach. They went after Kyler Murray. They thought those two were a great pairing, which I pretty much still agree with. And they made the playoffs this year. Disappointed down the stretch again, but a lot of that had to do with injuries. But Steve Wilkes, I'm just going to be honest, like, you could complain you should have got more than 1 year. There's a bunch of coaches before him that only got 1 year in charge, and they did better in their 1 year and only lasted a year. So I don't want to hear it. There are 6 minority head coaches currently in the NFL, a league which the majority of the players are black. See, this is the funny thing about the way all this stuff is framed, though. And this is what makes me mad. Because a majority of the players in the league are black, a majority of the coaches, I guess, should be black. Like, I mean, that's racist. That is making decisions or making judgments based on race, and that's not right about anyone. And there's a lot of things that go into that fact, but the fact is, in the NFL, or the fact that NFL players are majority black goes so far against the statistics of the United States population that it almost seems like maybe there is a racial bias in who's allowed to be an NFL player if you want to go that route. if that's the argument they're going to make for coaches, you have to make the same for every other minority or for every other race that is a absolute minority in the NFL. Because white players are a minority in the NFL. And I'm not going to do that because I don't think that's correct. And I don't think this is correct either. And some of the same people purporting this have questioned the fact that Mike McDaniel, who just got hired with the Dolphins, is half black. Because he doesn't look black enough. I'm going to take the guy at his word, because unlike Sean King, I know he's not a liar. Not Sean King, the former Bucs quarterback. Sean King, the guy who's absolutely a white guy who fakes being black and is a reporter or whatever. And we used to work for the Atlantic. He might still. Former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch, representing the NFL, told Judge Valerie E. Capronti that the league believes all claims in the lawsuit must be moved to arbitration according to the terms of employment agreements. I'm sorry. This is the kind of bullcrap that pisses me off, because this is also wrong. It's funny when you can have two sides in a case that are wrong about different parts of the case. The NFL, if someone makes a racial bias claim or just any kind of claim against the organization, if someone's suing you, you shouldn't be able to force them into some kind of arbitration. I don't care what agreements are on the books. To me that's unconstitutional. Because you are taking away someone's legal rights under the laws of the Constitution. Like, that's rich to me. The only reason you want to put this, to me, the only way you think, or you want to put this behind closed doors, is you think there are racist hiring practices. And if there are racist hiring practices in the NFL, well, buddy, that's going to be interesting to talk about. Wigder said the league demonstrated the unconscionable bias of the arbitrator when the NFL said the claims in the lawsuit were without merit. And that's true. How can you arbitrate fairly a claim that you believe before even the process even starts is without merit? I believe it's without merit, personally. And I voiced it on here. So let's just say I was, and if I was a qualified arbitrator with a high enough profile that I was going to be doing this, I would have bias, because I have, since this lawsuit started, said that to me it's a joke. That would be enough. If this was a legal case going before a jury, that would be enough to have me excused as a juror in a case. So, not that this is the type of case that would go before a jury, obviously. Well, Lynch said she invited the three coaches and their lawyers to meet with league officials to discuss the important issues surrounding racial inclusion that the NFL seeks to address. Today, they declined to meet with us, she said. Well, yeah, because they've decided to sue you. Like, this is stupid. This is a bunch of stupid people being stupid. This is a bunch of privileged people. Because, mind you, Flores has made multiple millions of dollars as a coach. Steve Wilkes has probably made multiple millions of dollars as a coach. Ray Horton has, or from all accounts that I'm aware of, has made multiple millions of dollars as a coach. These are privileged individuals. And they're flaunting it right now, in my opinion. The NFL, Loretta Lynch, Roger Goodell, all this stuff. This is all a bunch of privileged bullcrap. Let's see here. Alabama Crimson Tide cornerback Eli Ricks, high profile, former 5-star recruit. I believe he transferred to Alabama. Actually, he was a former All-American corner. Really, what season was he an All-American? Because he transferred from LSU this offseason. Was he All-American this year or 2020? Huh. Anyway, Rick's top transfer player this offseason. He has been booked on charges of speeding, driving without insurance, and possession of marijuana Sunday evening in Mississippi. One, I don't think it should be a crime to drive a car without insurance. The only reason that is because driving or anything to do with automobiles is not a right that was protected in the Constitution when it was enshrined. Even though, I mean, we're supposed to be a free country. Like, I hate government regulation because to me that's a stupid law. Oh, so I have to spend money on something? It's one of these things of like, you know, we're talking about protecting people, and the idea is like that your insurance, when something bad happens to someone else while you're on the road or something happens, you know. Really, it's more about paying for damages to other things, not really helping yourself. That's the problem with, to me, with car insurance and whatnot. But I don't like the government forcing anyone to pay for a product or service. That seems antithetical to the Constitution. Anyway, or those opinions aside, knowing these things, you know you're not supposed to drive over the speed limit. You know you're supposed to have insurance, unless you're an idiot and never paid attention to any of that stuff. And I'm saying, if you choose to not pay attention to the things you're supposed to know, you're being an idiot. And possession of marijuana, which, if it's illegal in your state, don't have it on you, and don't break the law when you've got it on you. Like, it's... Because, you know, there's part of me that wants to be like, yeah, but, you know, this is some 20, 21-year-old. Yeah, guess what? When I was 20, 21, heck, when I was 15, 16 years old, I wasn't stupid enough to do any of these things. Ricks, who transferred to Alabama from LSU this offseason, was arrested by Mississippi Highway Patrol and booked at 5:15 p.m. So this must have been yesterday. According to an online database, it was Ricks' first marijuana possession charge, and his bond was set at $0, which, good. The 6'2" cornerback from California, or a 6'2" cornerback from California, Ricks started his career at LSU, where he earned freshman All-SEC and AP All-America honors during his first season, which I'm guessing was 2020 or 2021. Doesn't say. He entered the transfer portal in November, roughly a month after the firing of head coach Ed Orgeron. Ricks is expected to compete for a starting job at Alabama, who have lost, it says starting cornerbacks, Josh Jobe and Jalen Amore Davis to the NFL. So, well, yeah, he's starting off in real good footing with Nick Saban. Nick's going to love that. I thought I had another article up there. Oh, yeah. I guess I didn't pull that up. Let's see. Was there anything else over here that I wanted to look at? Okay. Let's look at this real quick. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Nope. Don't want it. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins suspended 6 games for violating PED policy. I just realized I've probably been leaning off camera. Because I have to get so close to this TV. Okay. So, let's look at this. Tempe, Arizona. Arizona Cardinals star wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins has been suspended 6 games for violating performance-enhancing drug policy. Suspension comes from 4 days after the Cardinals traded a first-round pick. Makes me wonder if they knew this was coming for Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Marquise Brown. They also got a middle-of-the-draft pick in that deal too. Hopkins will be allowed to play during the preseason and practice with the team until the beginning of the 2022 regular season. Hopkins, a 3-time first-team All-Pro and 5-time Pro Bowl selection, is set to turn 30 on June 6th and is coming off an injury-riddled season that led to the lowest output of his career, which be interesting if he was trying to use some stuff in the offseason to heal up his body. Because originally that's what most steroids were for. It just so happened that it turns out that you could use steroids, like when they were developed. Steroids were developed to enhance the healing process. Well, by doing so, if you're working out and using them, it enhances the regrowth of the muscle fibers. Because like when you're working out, you're basically like pushing muscle fibers to their limit, really. And they're getting damaged and they're re-healing stronger than they were before. He missed 3 games in the middle of last season with an ankle injury and the final 4 games of the regular season, plus Arizona's wild card loss to the Los Angeles Rams after suffering an MCL injury in Week 14 on Monday Night Football. The knee was surgically repaired in December. In February, while making interview rounds at the Super Bowl in Los Angeles, Hopkins said on SiriusXM NFL Radio that his rehab was going great and was ahead of schedule. He finished last season with 572 yards and 8 touchdowns on 42 catches, which is good output on a per-catch basis. That number of touchdowns, that's a touchdown every 5 catches. After having 1,407 yards last season. In 2022. Arizona went 3-4 without Hopkins, and that's a big reason why their offense kind of cratered, because your number 1 receiver was Christian Kirk, who got overpaid this offseason. Hopkins was as good or better last season before his injury than he has been in the past. He had a higher catch percentage, yards per target, and yards after catch per reception through week 8. He was down slightly in yards per route from 2.1 in his first 8 seasons to 2.0 last season, which is okay, big deal. In 2 seasons with the Cardinals since they acquired him from the Houston Texans in 2020, Hopkins has 157 receptions for 1,979 yards and 14 touchdown catches, which is crazy. Even in a shortened and injury-filled season where he only played basically 10 games, he had 8 touchdowns as compared to 6 touchdowns in 2020 when he played the whole year. He missed 2 games in his first 8 seasons of his career, and then missed 6 last season. I guess that's not including the playoff game. He's set to tie that mark this season with his suspension. So I guess he played in 11 actual games in the regular season. Well, luckily Arizona's got a lot of talent in the receiver position. They got a lot of speed between Rondale Moore, Marquise Brown, Andy Isabella, and I believe they drafted kind of a bigger-bodied receiver down the board this weekend. I need to look at it. Okay. Why did I close that instead of going back? Okay, we're going to talk some NBA playoff stuff real quick. So we're going to pop over to the NBA page. So last night, the Warriors edged the Grizzlies, which was sad. Giannis dominated the Celtics. And Marcus Smart got hurt. He has a quad injury, and he's probably going to be questionable for Game 2. May or may not play. Also, Draymond Green got ejected in the Warriors-Grizzlies game, and it seemed like that kind of fired up the Warriors because they really picked it up. Yeah, and when I say Giannis dominated, another playoff triple double. Um, the Sixers had or did end up holding off the Toronto Raptors, but Embiid is hurt, and they're hoping he will return for Game 3 or 4 of their series with the Miami Heat. They better freaking hope so. But we've got Game 1 of Suns Mavs tonight. I'm not sure that Booker is going to be healthy for that game. You got Game 1 of Heat Sixers tonight. I think the Heat have a great chance to start the series off 2-0 with Joel Embiid out definitely for those first two games. Bucks Celtics looks like it's going to be fun. I'm hoping my Grizzlies do a better job of getting after the Warriors for the rest of that series, but just going into the series is I kind of expected, as talented as the Grizzlies are and as much as I want us to win, I just don't feel like we're going to have enough to beat the Warriors. I mean, they were really good throughout the middle of the season. Like, Steph started off really hot, and then he had that prolonged slump, but the rest of the team was still playing really well. Clay's back to being most of himself. Jordan Poole has become like Steph Curry light, which is just ridiculous, except with a little more defensive upside. And I mean, Dre, when he's been healthy, has been peak defensive Draymond. Andrew Wiggins has been really good. I feel like they're more experienced. I'm really hoping we can come back from, after losing Game 1. But I feel like this is going to be a knockout, drag-out series for us. And then I expect the Suns to beat the Mavericks. Now, it's going to be interesting because it's going to depend on if Booker even plays the series. But the Suns have been good without him. I mean, they were able to... They took on a really feisty down-the-stretch Pelicans team who really coalesced after the trading for C.J. McCollum and Larry Nance and some vets and fairly young vets. That's going to be a fun series. But I'm going to be honest. I'm picking the Heat to beat the Sixers. And even though the Bucks beat the Celtics Game 1, as crazy or, as difficult as it is for me to say this because, I love Giannis, I think that Celtics team is going to win that series. Even after going down in a 1-0 hole. So, but that's kind of where the playoffs are. Now that we're out of draft season, a lot of my coverage is going to be focused on the NBA here, and hopefully, as I stream into the future, I'll be able to balance that coverage winter and spring a little better. Which now that I'm kind of running 2 shows a day, that might be a lot easier. So, with that being said, let's get into this. So, these are the undrafted free agent that we know have been signed so far. So, Arizona Cardinals so far only have one on the books. That is linebacker Chandler Wooten of Auburn. Whoa, was that big a second ago? Atlanta has a huge group, which that's not a shock. Some of these teams are going to have much bigger lists because either they had far fewer draft picks or they're rebuilding teams and they're going to bring in as many guys to compete as possible. That's where Atlanta is. So, wide receiver Jared Bernhardt of Ferris State, really small school guy. Stanley Berryhill of Arizona, another wide receiver. Tyshawn James, wide receiver from Central Connecticut. Leroy Watson, tight end out of UTSA. Offensive lineman Tyler Vrabel out of Boston College. If I'm not mistaken, that's Mike Vrabel's kid. So that's kind of funny. Part of me thinks I might be wrong, but I don't think I am. I'm reading here part of his profile. Oh, Chad Reuter's write-up doesn't say whether he's... Nope, I'm right. That is Mike Vrabel's son. Interesting to see that Vrabel didn't end up with Tennessee as a UDFA. I guess he didn't see, or his dad and him talked. I'm sure he talked with his dad about it, but that's interesting. I guess maybe he sees a better path to playing time there. Defensive lineman Timothy Horn from Kansas State. Bryce Rogers, defensive lineman from UC Davis. Defensive lineman Derek Tangelo from Penn State. It wouldn't shock me to see him or Vrabel make Atlanta's roster going into the season. Outside linebacker Quoney Ding from California, or University of Cal. Linebacker Nathan Landman of Colorado. Wouldn't shock me if he made Atlanta's final roster. I like Landman a lot. One of my favorite late round kind of fringe draft prospects. He's one of those types of players that's got great IQ, great work ethic. I just feel like he's one of those guys that routinely, he fits the profile of a guy who isn't going to get drafted or is going to be drafted really late, but he's going to outperform, going to outperform that draft slot or undrafted status. Cornerback Matt Hankins out of Iowa. Safety Brad Hawkins out of Michigan. Hawkins was a nice little pickup. And punter Seth Vernon of Portland State for the Falcons. The Ravens only have 2 signings, which is interesting. Quarterback Anthony Brown out of Oregon, and linebacker Jacoby McClain out of Auburn, who is one of the top undrafted guys for me, because I thought he would go 5th, 6th round. Buffalo Bills, Carolina Panthers apparently haven't signed anyone. Chicago Bears, you've got Allie Green, the 4th out of Missouri. Wide receiver Cyrus Holder out of Duquesne. You know what? I'm going to check. I'm going to see if... I usually look at CBS Sports. Let's see if... Let's see here. Let's see, that's Pro Football Network. Let's check out CBS Sports. This is usually the article I go to. Okay, so this seems way more up to date than the NFL Network one, or the NFL.com one, should I say? So let's go here. So we'll start with the Cardinals again. Okay, let me move my mic back since I'm a lot closer here. So we got Darrell Baker, cornerback, Georgia Southern. Chandler Wooten, like I said, from Auburn. Will Miles, defensive end, Central Methodist. Ronnie Rivers, running back from Fresno State. Stephen Richardson, wide receiver from Northwestern. Jerron Stokes, defensive lineman from Oklahoma. Cole Bentley, an offensive lineman from Louisville. And Javonte Payton, wide receiver from Tennessee. Look for Payton to push to make the Cardinals roster, not just because I'm a big Tennessee fan. Peyton played most of his career, I believe, at Mississippi State. But Peyton is a really great deep threat. He's got good size and speed. He only had, I think, 18 catches, 19 catches for us last year. But he had like
it was like 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. It was ridiculous. He will get open deep. And he would be a nice player to have at the beginning of the season with DeAndre Hopkins out. I think Peyton's got the ability to make it. Once again, we'll see. This skips Atlanta. Oh no, there's Atlanta. Let's see, Atlanta. Like I said, Jared Barnhart, quarterback, Ferris State. Now they said wide receiver, so I guess he was a quarterback at a small school, and I guess NFL.com thought he would switch to receiver. So that's interesting. Let's see. I talked about Tangelo out of Penn State, Vrabel out of Boston College, Rogers out of UC Davis, Hawkins from Michigan, Tyshawn James from Central Connecticut, wide receiver. See any new names here? Oh, here's one that wasn't on there. Kanai Malga out of USC. I want to say he's got a older brother or a relative who played in the league, because I've seen that last name before. Kuani Ding out of Cal, and Trey Webb, DB out of Montana State. Let's see. Like I said, okay, so the Ravens, because the Ravens usually have a big UDFA class. So Charles Wiley, linebacker out of UTSA. UTSA had several guys drafted, and already seen a couple guys or a couple linebackers from there in the undrafted ranks. They were Traylor has that program looking really good. And they're going to be moving to the American Athletic Conference in the near future. Zacoby McClain out of Auburn, one of my top undrafted guys. Anthony Brown, quarterback, Oregon. Joshua Ross, linebacker, Michigan. Jeremiah Moon, linebacker, Florida. He's one of the higher rated guys that did not get drafted. Emeka Emezi, wide receiver out of NC State. Ricky Person Jr., running back out of North Carolina State. If we're going to take one, it's weird that they have NC State and then North Carolina State, same school. If we're talking about, now Ricky Person, that was a solid undrafted signing for more running back depth for the Ravens. Good contact balance, physical runner. Denzel Williams, cornerback at Villanova. Aaron Johnson, tackle from South Dakota. I wonder if that's South Dakota or South Dakota State. Rayshad Nichols, defensive lineman Stephen F. Austin. I like Nichols. Nichols is I knew he wouldn't get drafted, but watching McCollum's tape, Nichols has some traits. Slade Bolden, wide receiver, Alabama. Potential slot depth option. And then Shamar Bridges, wide receiver, Fort Valley State. Moving to the Bills. I still can't believe Watermeyer went undrafted, but the Bills picking up Watermeyer undrafted, I actually expect he'll end up making the team. Prince Emil, defensive tackle from Penn. Malik Williams, wide receiver, Appalachian State. Alec Anderson, offensive lineman, UCLA. Neil Pau'u, wide receiver, BYU. Trayvon Fuller, cornerback, Tulsa. Keith Corbin, wide receiver, Jackson State. Hey, another Jackson State guy. Well, I guess it's our first of undrafteds, but he's another guy that I think could stick as an undrafted player. Corbin out of Jackson State. Really well coached. And I don't just mean that by Prime. I really like Coach Prime's coaching staff at Jackson State. Raheem Blackshear, running back, Virginia Tech. Rounds out their undrafted class. The Panthers, Charleston Rambo. Like that pickup. Davis Cheek, quarterback from the University of Elon, or Elon University, which I believe that's where Rick Pitino's coaching basketball now. I remember correctly. He's been there a couple years or so. But Charleston Rambo, wide receiver, Miami, like that. He could make their final roster. Kalen Tolson, linebacker, Illinois. Marquand McCall, defensive tackle, Kentucky. Really big nose tackle. Wouldn't shock me if he made the final roster. Andrew Parchment, wide receiver from FSU. Drew Hartlaub, safety from Penn State. Josh Lovett, running back from Penn State. Aaron Mosby, from a linebacker from Fresno State. Oh, this will be fun. Talolo Limu Jones, wide receiver, Eastern Washington. Isaiah Graham Mobley, linebacker out of Boston College. Rashawn Henry, wide receiver from Virginia. Josh Babbitts, tight end out of North Dakota State. And Derek Wright, wide receiver, Utah State. Let's see. For the Bears, you got Allie Green, cornerback from Missouri. Gaddafi Wright, linebacker from the University of Buffalo. Savon Scarver, wide receiver from Utah State. Jake Tongues, tight end from Cal. Jack Sanborn out of Wisconsin. He will make that roster. He will make the Bears roster. I'm calling that one. Another guy that should not have gone undrafted. Jalen Jones, DB from Mississippi. Cyrus Holder, wide receiver from Duquesne. Master Teague, running back from Ohio State. Wouldn't shock me if he made the roster. Kevin Shaw, wide receiver out of Liberty. Wouldn't shock me if he made the final roster there. Same with Amari Carter, safety out of Miami. Actually, it wouldn't shock me if a couple more of these guys than that made the roster just because the Bears are rebuilding. Cincinnati Bengals. Shamari Jones, running back, Coastal Carolina. If their running back room wasn't already so deep, I'd probably say he has a chance. Devin Cochran, offensive lineman from Georgia Tech. Clarence Hicks, linebacker from UTSA, and there's all of UTSA's starting linebackers picked up as undrafted free agents. The Bengals got the best long snapper available this year, Cal Adamitis out of Pittsburgh. He's probably going to make the roster. Brendan Bradley Hiles, DB out of Washington. Really well coached DB room. Wouldn't shock me if he made their final 53 or at least the practice squad. Tariquius Tisdale, defensive line, Mississippi. There's some people I'm like, when you make someone's name so confusing to even try and pronounce, are you doing your kids a favor? I have no problem with him or whatever. It almost seems like, that's the guy who people are going to come up with nicknames or short forms for their name, and no one's going to actually use their name. Anyway, let's see. Justin Ring, tight end out of Kentucky. Javon, how would you pronounce that? Haley, wide receiver from Coastal Carolina. Javon Healy, wide receiver, Coastal Carolina. Carson Wells, linebacker, Colorado. And Desmond Noel, offensive lineman from Florida Atlantic. For the Browns, Malik Smith, tight end, not attached. Interesting. Felix Harper, quarterback from Alcorn State. another one of the guys that I thought was crazy didn't get drafted, and he wasn't. Here's another thing. Now that I'm remembering from it, I didn't see him among ESPN's draftable receiver guys on there, even though like he had a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of guys that weren't on their DraftCast stuff. Isaiah Weston out of Northern Iowa was one of the highest upside guys in the draft. He will make the Browns roster. I'm calling that now. Mike Harley, wide receiver, Miami. Zaire Mitchell Payton, tight end from FAU. Glenn Logan, defensive tackle from LSU. I think he could push for making that roster. And Julius Falk, cornerback from Delta State. I bet you Harper, the quarterback from Alcorn State, makes their practice squad. Dallas Cowboys. Big Cat Bryant, edge from UCF, another guy. I didn't mention him on day 3, but he was a guy that I thought could have gone. Once again, another guy who was not on ESPN's best available board. Wanye Thomas, safety from Georgia Tech, who is not as good of a prospect, or Bryant was one of my evaluations. Bryant's a good player. I think Big Cat Bryant's going to make the Cowboys. Wanye Thomas could make the Cowboys at depth. Aaron Shimkin, running back from Harvard. Yeah, I bet you he doesn't make it. Isaac Taylor Stewart from USC, big name. One of the best, another one of the top undrafted guys. Alec Lindstrom, center from Boston College, on the Cowboys. I'm going to bet you he makes the roster of the practice squad. He'll be on someone's 53-man roster this season and will stick. LaKendrick Van Zant, strong safety from TCU. This is a big class of undrafted free agents, which is also a norm for the Cowboys. Ty Freifogel, wide receiver, Indiana. High upside physical specimen there. Wouldn't be shocked if he makes it. Marquise Bell, safety of Florida A&M. He was one of look, I'm just going to say this. This right now has the most talent of any of the classes, in my opinion. Because Big Cat Bryant should have been drafted. Thomas could have been. Same with Taylor Stewart. Lindstrom should have been drafted. Freifogel probably should have been drafted. Bell definitely should have been drafted. Marquise Bell he's going to make the team. Aaron Hansford, linebacker A&M, wouldn't be shocked if he makes the team. I thought he should have been drafted. Demario Drummond, one of my fringe receivers that I really liked because of his physicality. The battle between him and Freifogel for a spot is going to be interesting. Freifogel's more athletic, but I think Drummond's better at the position. Jonathan Garibe out of Texas Tech, who I want to say a few people actually had him as their number 1 kicker, which shocked me. He could make the roster. Armand Simon, Texas A&M Commerce, which is A&M's campus at Commerce, Texas. It doesn't have a position listed. Dennis Houston, wide receiver, Western Illinois. Story Jackson, linebacker from Liberty. James Empty, center from BYU. His last name's Empty. Interesting. And Peyton Hendershot, tight end from Indiana. They drafted Jake Ferguson, who's kind of like Dalton Schultz 2.0. Hendershot was a fairly highly recruited player coming out of high school. Interesting choice, or undrafted guy. There's a lot of names, a lot of draftable talent that went undrafted. So Cowboys right now have my favorite UDFA class. Broncos, Jalen Vigil, wide receiver, Appalachian State. We saw a wide receiver from Appalachian State earlier. Virgil is the better of the two. Christopher Allen, linebacker, Alabama. I wouldn't be shocked if he makes the roster. Jaquan, not because he's from Alabama. He's good. Should have been drafted, and the Broncos need depth there. Jaquan McMillan, cornerback, Eastern Carolina. Cortez Davis, cornerback, Hawaii. Brandon Johnson, wide receiver from UCF. He's got a chance to make the team. So does Virgil. Rodney Williams, obviously everybody does, but I mean for real. Rodney Williams, tight end, UT Martin. It'd be interesting to see a UT Martin guy make the NFL. Wait, is Chris Allen and Christopher Allen two different guys here? Because that says Christopher Allen, defensive end, Alabama. That's Chris Allen, linebacker from Alabama. I'm not doing that research now. And then you've got Tyreek McAllister, running back out of Charleston. For the Lions, you've got Khalil. Let me check the chat real quick. Don't want to ignore you guys. My computer was being slow there. Okay. Jump me down the page. All right, so Khalil Pimbleton, wide receiver out of Central Michigan. Demetrius Taylor, defensive tackle from App State. Greg Bale, running back, San Diego State. That guy, I didn't think he'd get drafted. Bell's got a shot. Obina Eze or Obina Eze, offensive tackle from TCU. I think he's a Dan Campbell guy. I think he's going to make that roster. CJ Boswell, DB from Miami, Ohio. Corey Sutton, wide receiver, Appalachian State. Josh Johnson, wide receiver from Tulsa. I like Johnson's chances to make the Lions roster. Another guy I'm shocked didn't get drafted. Nolan Given, tight end, Southeastern. Derek Deese, tight end, San Jose State. They drafted a tight end, but Deese, I think, once again, Dan Campbell was a tight end coach. They're going to carry, I think they're going to carry a minimum of 4 tight ends. Deese could make that roster. Zine Obeid, offensive lineman, or it's probably Zane Obeid, offensive lineman from Ferris State. Kader Hoho, or Kader Hoho, cornerback from A&M Commerce. And then Kelvin Jarvis, guard from Michigan State. That's the Lions group. The Packers. Well, actually, like I said, loved the Cowboys. I like the Broncos group. I think the Lions have a pretty solid UDFA group. Green Bay Packers, Tyler Goodson, running back of Iowa. They're starting off with a good one. Goodson should have been drafted. Caleb Jones, offensive lineman from Indiana. How do you pronounce that? Alkale? Oh, wait, there's no L at the beginning. Okay. Akyle Byers, defensive tackle from Missouri. Yeah, he was real good. Missouri got run all over last year. Doubt he makes the roster. Raleigh Texada, cornerback out of Baylor. Wouldn't be shocked if he made the roster. Because Barnes, because of his speed, got drafted. You know, they had their top 2 safeties got drafted. Texada is a solid corner. It wouldn't shock me if he caught on the back end of this roster. He was actually better at playing the position than Barnes last year. Chauncey Manak, defensive end from Louisiana. Cole Schneider, offensive lineman from UCF. Ellis Brooks, linebacker from Penn State. Never count out a Penn State linebacker. Trey Sterling, safety from Oklahoma State. Could see him making their roster. Hawadi Pututau, pass rusher from Utah. That's a name for you. Anthony Turner, wide receiver from Grandview. I think that's Grandview State. Kyle Chisholm, wide receiver from Missouri. R.J. Baylor, running back, Oregon State. And Danny Davis, wide receiver from Wisconsin. Texans, Seth Green, tight end, Houston. Tristan McCollum, DB from Sam Houston. I believe he and Zion McCollum are brothers or cousins. I believe they're related. I can't remember. Let's see here. Colby Marvell Peel, safety from Oklahoma State. Colby Harvell Peel. Jacoby France, defensive back from Memphis. Jake Hansen, linebacker from Illinois. Don't be shocked if Hansen makes the Texas roster. I think a number of these guys are. Myron Cunningham of Arkansas. I would be shocked if he doesn't make the roster. Kurt Hinish, defensive lineman from Notre Dame. Drew Estrada, wide receiver from Baylor. Johnny Johnson III, wide receiver from Oregon. I think one of those guys will make the roster. And Damian Daniels, defensive tackle out of Nebraska. For the Colts, Ryan Van Denmark. Ryan Van DeMark, offensive tackle from UConn. Yeah, I'm sure he'll make it as good as UConn's offensive line was last year. That was very much sarcasm. When these ads do stuff, it jumps everything around. Where was I? Dallas Flowers, quarterback, Pittsburgh State. Jack Cohn, quarterback, Notre Dame. Kakoa Crawford, wide receiver from Cal. CJ Verdell, running back from it. That says Oregon State. Verdell played for Oregon. This is another thing when they mess up like colleges. I get there's a lot going on, but Verdell's a big enough name you should know. Okay, I'm gonna put my right arm down for a second. Verdell could make the roster. Josh Salitzer, offensive lineman from Wisconsin. Wouldn't shock me if he makes that final roster. Sterling Weatherford, safety from Miami, Ohio. Michael Young Jr., wide receiver out of Cincinnati. I think Young could make it. He was solid for Cincinnati last year. You got Forrest Rhine, a linebacker from Villanova. Samson Nakua, wide receiver from BYU. Devontae Price, running back from Florida International. Here's my thing. If I'm picking between Verdell and Price, I'm picking Price. Price would be the running back to make the roster. And then Max Borghi. How many draftable guys did they get? Borghi's one of the most underrated players in the draft. Great receiving back. That almost seems like he'd be a great guy to have on the roster in case Hines gets hurt, or to have around if you think Hines isn't going to last past his current contract with you. They also took the injury risk on JoJo Damon as an undrafted free agent. That was a really good move. That's a high upside pick right there because a lot of people had them in their top 100 or had Damon in their top 100 prospects. Cullen Wick, defensive end from Tulsa. Wesley French, offensive lineman, Western Michigan. Grayson Atkins, kicker from North Carolina. Trevor Denbo, safety from SMU. Scott Patchen, defensive lineman from Colorado State. McKinley Williams, D lineman from Syracuse. And Alex Millette, guard from Marshall. Colts have a big group and some players that I like that have a shot. of course, the running backs, but definitely Salitzer, Young. I think Nakua's got a shot. Damon's definitely got a shot. So does Wick. I mean, I guess anybody who makes a team this way has a shot, but I mean beyond that. All right, moving to the Jaguars. Josh Thompson, DB from Texas. Nick Ford, offensive lineman from Utah. Andrew Mevis from Iowa State. I think he could be a dark horse guy there. Kevin Austin out of Notre Dame, really athletic, good size, like 6'2". He's got a chance. Grant Morgan, linebacker from Arkansas. Morgan's got a shot. Morgan's a really smart player. Garrett Price, tight end from UAB. Israel Antoine, defensive tackle from Oklahoma State. They had a really good run defense last year. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he was able to squeak his way onto the team. Sean Mahone, safety, West Virginia. Luwan Winningham, wide receiver from Central Arkansas. Marcus Tatum, offensive lineman, UCF. I'll say this, Winningham has, one, a great name. And two, he's one of the best FCS wide receivers in the class. He's got a shot. Grayson Gunter, tight end, Southern Miss. Benji Franklin, cornerback from Tarleton State. I don't think I've ever even heard of Tarleton State. Apparently I need to dive deeper. Shabari Davis, cornerback from Southeast Missouri State. Deshaun Dixon, outside linebacker from Norfolk State. He could make the roster. Denzel Okafor, guard from Texas. Another guy. By the way, Texas didn't have a single player drafted this year. The University of Tennessee had a player drafted in the second round among our 5 guys. So that got drafted. Who's the real UT? Kansas City Chiefs. We got Gene Pryor, offensive lineman from Hawaii. They signed Justin Ross, wide receiver from Clemson. Reason he didn't get drafted, he did not pass his physical at the NFL Combine. So as part of the stuff that was going on with his spine, he had to have. So here's the issue with spinal fusion surgery. What usually happens is when those vertebrae are fused together, it puts more strain on the vertebrae joints above and below, I guess, is the idea. And it's worse depending on what areas you get the fusion surgery done in. So, like, Damone Clark had a similar thing done this offseason because of a herniated disc. But his condition was not as weird as, like, Ross's, I think, is like, I want to say his might be related to spinal stenosis. Or something like that. So we'll see. But I'm going to say Ross is a long shot to make it because of this issue. Because if as talented as he is, if Damone Clark, who had a spinal fusion, although his I think was in his lower back, if it was enough to knock him out of the draft or from being drafted, it might be enough to stop him from even having a career, because apparently the idea is his condition is serious enough that teams are worried that one wrong hit or one bad landing could literally end his career or worse. So that was what Pro Football Doc, Dr. Chow, was talking or wrote about. Beyond Justin Ross, Jack Cochran, linebacker from South Dakota. Dustin Crum, quarterback, Kent State. Like that pickup for them. Tayon Fleet Davis, running back from Maryland. Komate Coffee, defensive back from Northern Colorado. And Jarian Ely, running back from Ole Miss. I think Ely could make the roster as a receiving back. Las Vegas Raiders, you've got Zach Van Valkenburg, edge from Iowa. I like Van Valkenburg. I think he'll make the final roster. Chase Garbers, quarterback from Cal. He's got a shot to make at least. I think he's got a shot at the practice squad. Sam Webb, cornerback, Missouri Western. Circle him. He'll make that roster. Darian Butler, linebacker from Arizona State. Myron Tagovailoa Amosa, defensive lineman, Notre Dame. I think he has a really high likelihood of making that roster. Quinterio Cole, safety from Louisville. Bryce Cosby, safety from Bell State. Wow, that's a name. Cole Fotheringham, tight end, Utah. And then wide receiver Trey Turner from Virginia Tech. Los Angeles Chargers, Brandon Peters, quarterback from Illinois. Really? Okay. Stone Smart, tight end from Old Dominion. James McCourt, kicker from Illinois. Isaac Weaver, center from Old Dominion. Man, they really like Illinois and Old Dominion, apparently. Andrew Trainer, offensive tackle from William & Mary. Brandon Sebastian, cornerback from Boston College. Kevin Marks Jr., a running back from Buffalo. Raheem Lane, safety from Indiana. Lane could make the roster. Trayvon Bradford, wide receiver from Oregon State. Letty Brown, running back from West Virginia. I like him better than Marks. Skylar Thomas, safety from Liberty. Eric Comenhoek, tight end from Southern California or USC. Tyreek Maddox Williams, linebacker Rutgers. And Ty Shelby, outside linebacker from Louisiana Monroe. Let's see the Rams. The Rams picked up Cameron Dicker. He'll probably compete for that. He'll compete for their kicker job. He could win it. Or they see him as a punter. So, either way. Although, I think Hecker's still with the Rams, so... Well, no, didn't they cut him after the season? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I saw that Hecker was no longer with the Rams, which I couldn't believe. So, he could fill either one of those spots, because he played both at Texas. Jaron McVeigh, safety from Baylor. Daniel Isom, DB from Washington State. You've got Brandon Thomas, outside linebacker from North Dakota State. I could see him making their roster. Jack Hummel, inside linebacker from Iowa State. Caesar Williams, cornerback from Wisconsin. Could see him making the roster. Deron Lowe, cornerback from Liberty. Keir Thomas, defensive lineman from Florida State, could make the roster. Elijah Garcia from Rice, defensive tackle. Miami Dolphins, already love the start of this one. Their top two guys on here. Kellen Deesh, offensive lineman, Arizona State. This guy should have gone late third, early fourth. And he went undrafted for some reason. Home run there. Zaquandre White, running back, South Carolina. Big upside to their running back room right there. I don't think he got enough chances at South Carolina or just in general while he was in college. White's got, 4.4 speed. He's strong. He's quick. He's agile. I think White's got a lot of upside. Blaze Andrees, offensive line, Minnesota. Now, wait a second. Now, Kader Coho, I saw on another team's list. I thought. Am I wrong? from A&M Commerce. Interesting. Verone McKinley III. Now, they've got him listed as a cornerback from Oregon. Most people have him listed as a safety. McKinley was teammates with Javon Holland at Oregon, who they picked in the second round last year and was awesome. I think that's a great pick for McKinley was a guy I thought would go fourth round. Ty Clary, offensive lineman from Arkansas. We've already listed in their first 6 guys. Deej, White, McKinley, and Clary that I think could all make the roster. Tommy Heatherly, punter from FIU. I mean, he could. Tanner Connor, wide receiver out of Idaho State. Love that pickup. He could make it. DeAndre Johnson, defensive end from Tennessee. Glad to see a Tennessee boy. Another Tennessee boy getting picked up. Braylon Sanders out of Mississippi. One of my most underrated wide receivers in the draft. Love that. Jordan Williams, defensive tackle at Virginia Tech. Elijah Hamilton, DB, Louisiana Tech. Ben Stills, defensive lineman for Nebraska. And Owen Carney, edge from Illinois. Ooh, Dolphins. Dolphins up there with the Cowboys for the best undrafted class for sure. Minnesota Vikings, we've got, is that Luigi Villain? That is a great name. Edge from Wake Forest. Ryan Wright, punter from Tulane. There's Trey Turner again. Trey Turner was up just literally 2 teams ago or so. Where did I see him? Wasn't it? Yeah, Trey Turner's here for the Raiders. How is he on both the Raiders and the Vikings? So one of those teams doesn't have Trey Turner. Who's doing this for CBS Sports? Thomas Hennigan, wide receiver from Appalachian State. That's a 4th App State receiver in the undrafted pool. Bryant Kobach, running back from Toledo. Josh Sokol, center from Sacred Heart. Tyrese Stevenson, defensive tackle from Tulsa. Zach McCloud, offensive linebacker from Miami. And Mike Brown, safety, Miami, Ohio. New England Patriots, Brendan Schooler, safety from Texas. Derek King, quarterback, Miami. They don't see him as a quarterback. They must see him as a receiver. Won't be the first time they drafted a college quarterback and turned him into a receiver or into a quality receiver. They've done that a few times, including Julian Edelman. Let's see here. Liam Shanahan, center from LSU. You've got Jack Juji, punter from Eastern Michigan, or Juge. Roddy Russey, center from Houston. LeBron Ray, DN from Alabama. I bet you he makes the roster. And DeMarcus Mitchell, linebacker from Purdue. Wouldn't be shocked if he made the Patriots roster as well. New Orleans Saints. They usually do pretty good in the undrafted game. Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver, kick returner from Weber State. Like Abram Smith out of Baylor, gives him a powerful but also speedy back. Smoke Monday, a safety. They listed Saints here. Smoke Monday's from Auburn. Like that pickup, he could make the roster. Eric Wilson, offensive line, Penn State. He could make the roster. John Parker Romo, kicker for Virginia Tech. Will Lutz has had some injury issues. I don't see him beating out Will Lutz. DeMarcus Fields, DB from Texas Tech. Nefi Sewell or Nephi Sewell, linebacker from Utah. I think he's going to make the roster. Lucas Kroll, tight end from Pittsburgh. I like that pickup. He could make their roster as well. Josh DeBlanco, linebacker Cincinnati. or sorry, Joel Dublanco. Sage Doxtator, offensive lineman, New Mexico State. That is an amazing name. This is a fit right here. Dajon Dixon, wide receiver, Nicholls State. I'd almost pencil him in to make the roster. They also got another receiver from Weber State. No, that's Rashid Shaheed listed twice. They have multiple people posting this page. I'm confused. Daniel Whalen, punter, UC Davis. So they have a kicker and a punter as part of their group. Lewis Kidd, offensive lineman, Montana State. Derek, my goodness, what a name. Derek Schweigerand, offensive lineman from Iowa State. And then Jack Corner, defensive back, Iowa. Or Corner, running or a DB from Iowa. New York Giants, Darian Evans, cornerback, LSU. He can make the roster. Jeremiah Hall, fullback, move tight end from Oklahoma. Could see him making the team. Josh Rivas, guard from Kansas State. Tyrone Truesdale from defensive tackle from Florida. Jabari Ellis, defensive lineman from South Carolina. Yusuf Corker, defensive back from Kentucky. Could see him making the roster. Same with Austin Allen, tight end out of Nebraska. Christopher Hinton, defensive lineman from Michigan. Another guy who can make it. Jashawn Corbin, running back from Florida State. He was highly recruited. I could see him making more noise in the NFL level. He wouldn't shock me if he made the team. Zion Gilbert, cornerback from Florida Atlantic. And then Dalen Baldwin, wide receiver from Michigan. New York Jets. Zonovan Bam Knight, running back from NC State. Now, wait a second. There was an NC State running back earlier person. You know, Knight might be the more powerful one. I might have confused Person and Knight. Huh. Well, anyway. The Jets drafted Hall. They've got Carter. They re-signed Tevin Coleman. I think Elijah McGuire's still there. It would shock me if a running back made their roster, but he might be the guy who could pull, but Knight could pull it off. Irvin Charles, wide receiver, IUP. DQ Thomas, linebacker, Middle Tennessee State. Wow, my eyes are messing with me there. Ron Hunt, wide receiver, North Carolina A&T. DJ Brewer, defensive tackle, Coastal Carolina. I like Brewer and Hunt. Those are guys who could make the roster. Tony Dams, cornerback, Illinois. DJ Ford, safety from East Carolina. Savion Williams, defensive tackle from Florida A&M. Another small school guy that I think could make the league. Kashawn Abram, wide receiver, Kent State. The Eagles, Mario Goodrich, cornerback, Clemson. Like that. They picked up Carson Strong out of Nevada. That's interesting. Josh Blackwell, DB from Duke. They picked up Kennedy Brooks from Oklahoma. I like that move. They've got a deep running back room, but Boston Scott, I think, will be a free agent again after this season. We'll see if they want to pay Miles Sanders. They got Kenneth Gainwell, but Kennedy Brooks is interesting. Josh Jobe from Alabama, he's going to make the roster. E.J. Perry, quarterback from Brown. They picked up two of the top undrafted free agent quarterbacks. That's interesting. Perry's a little more local than Strong. Because Brown's not super far from there. Noah Ellis from Idaho. Love that one. I thought he would get picked. Britton Covey, wide receiver, return man from Utah. He was an electric return man, one of the best return men, if not the best return man in college football the past couple seasons. Reed Blankenship, safety from Middle Tennessee State. I could see Blankenship making their roster. William Dunkel, offensive lineman from San Diego State. You got Jared Williams, offensive lineman from Miami, and Josh Sills, a guard from Oklahoma State. I could see Sills or Dunkel making their roster. Really like the Eagles' undrafted class. The Steelers, Jalen Warren, running back. This says Oklahoma. Jalen Warren is a running back from Oklahoma State. Strong back. Was really productive for them. He could. I wouldn't be shocked if he made their final roster. Chris Owens, offensive line from Alabama. They need depth. He could provide it. Mateo Durant, running back from Duke. Bryce Watts, DB from UMass. Tyree Johnson, defensive lineman from Texas A&M. He's a defensive end. I guess he could play 3-4 outside linebacker. I don't know if he's athletic enough for that or agile enough for that. We'll see. Chris Steele, cornerback for USC. I mean, I guess Tyree Johnson could be a pass rush down specialist. TD Moultrie, outside linebacker from Auburn. Donovan Jeter, defensive lineman from Michigan. Jake Dixon, offensive tackle from Duquesne. And Jordan Tucker, offensive tackle from North Carolina. I really like Jordan Tucker. Out of the North Carolina offensive linemen, 2 were drafted. Tucker's actually my favorite of their offensive linemen. San Francisco 49ers. I think Tucker absolutely makes the Steelers roster. 49ers, Tay Martin, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. Segun Olubi, linebacker from San Diego State. Jason Poe, offensive lineman from Mercer. Leon O'Neal, safety from A&M. Could see him making their roster. Tasir Mack, wide receiver from Pittsburgh. Could see him making the roster. Donovan West, center from Arizona State. He's making the 49ers roster. Garrett Walston, tight end from North Carolina. If Walston was coming out of college in 2020 off that tape, I would have liked him better. I'll say this. It seemed like Walston got worse in 2021. He has some weird drops. He could make the 49ers roster, but I wouldn't guarantee it. I think Jeremiah Gimmel, their linebacker from North Carolina, has a better shot at making the roster. Seattle Seahawks, you got Levi Lewis, quarterback from Louisiana Lafayette. He's a little undersized. They could be looking at him at quarterback, could be looking at him at wide receiver. Caleb Ellaby, another smaller quarterback from Western Michigan. He's like the group. I didn't love the comp at first, but looking at the stats, I think Brett Coleman has a point. Caleb Ellaby's almost like a group of 5, or it's kind of like a group of 5 version of gosh, where's my, I'm going to pause that. No. Don't want to full screen that. Don't know how that full screened. Let's see here. Caleb Ellaby is kind of like the group of 5 version of Matt Corral. Except I don't think he's quite as athletic as Corral, but he is quick and he can move. Same with Levi Lewis. That's interesting. Now see, this has them listed with Jeremiah Hall. Jeremiah Hall was listed for another team up the board or up the article. So where is Hall? Then you got Deontay Williams, a safety from Nebraska. Shamarius Gilmore, offensive lineman from Georgia State. Joey Blount, safety from Virginia. Scott Nelson, safety Wisconsin. Matthew Godel, defensive lineman from West Florida. Not familiar with that school. Jake Harslow, Jake Herslow, wide receiver from Houston. I could see Nelson making the team out of this group, and one of LB and Lewis. Now, if they converted Lewis to wide receiver, maybe they think he can make the team, but I bet you one of those quarterbacks makes the roster. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kyler McMichael, cornerback from North Carolina. Ryan Bowman, defensive lineman from Washington. You've got Foley Fadakasi's younger brother, Aloa Kunle Fadakasi, linebacker from Rutgers. Just because his brother made the league, that makes me think, you got bloodlines here. Fadakasi can make it. Kalen Geiger, wide receiver, Texas Tech. Fadakasi was probably the best player on Rutgers defense last year. Kalen Geiger, wide receiver from Texas Tech. Dylan Cook, offensive tackle from Montana. Jordan Young, linebacker from Old Dominion. J.J. Russell, linebacker from Memphis. Jarrett Stearns, wide receiver from Western Kentucky. I could see Stearns making the Bucs roster. Well, the issue there is that team has so many freaking wide receivers already. Nolan Turner, safety from Clemson. Definitely could see Turner making that team. The very least is a special teamer. Devin Tompkins, wide receiver from Utah State. Don Gardner, cornerback from South Dakota State. Curtis Blackwell, offensive lineman from Ball State. Joe Ozogwu, outside linebacker from Arkansas State. You've got Braylon Robinson, a wide receiver from Alcorn State. He can make the roster. Agil Glass, quarterback from Alabama A&M. That's interesting. And Ben Beese. Ben Beese, tight end from Wisconsin River Falls. Not familiar with him. Titans, let's see what we got. Caleb Shudak, the kicker from Iowa. Okay. Reggie Robinson Jr., wide receiver at SMU. Okay. Trey Swilling, cornerback, Georgia Tech. David Anini, edge from Houston. He could make the roster. I like Jaden Peavy from Texas A&M. I really hope he makes the roster because I like him better than... Actually, I think he's better than all but two guys on our defensive line, probably out the gate, like Simmons and Autry. But I think he could be as good as Tasir Tart and Naquan Jones immediately. I like Peavy a lot. Michael Griffin II, DB out of South Dakota State. You've got Ryan Stonehouse, punter, Colorado State. That's the Colorado State punter that I've been trying to remember his name. Stonehouse is really good. I don't see us moving on from Kern yet, but he's a guy that we could stash on a practice squad. Haskell Garrett, defensive tackle, Ohio State, could absolutely make the roster. Sam Okue Inoa, pass rusher from Maryland. Wow, how do you pronounce that name? There's so many vowels in a row. Julius Chestnut, running back from Sacred Heart. Then you got the Washington Commanders bringing up the back end here. Jaquez Azard, wide receiver from Sam Houston State. He's one of the best, another one of the top small school prospects. I'm actually kind of shocked he didn't sneak into the back end of the draft for someone. Tyrese Robinson, offensive lineman from Oklahoma. You've got Terrell Gardner, linebacker from Louisiana. I could see him making their roster. Devin Taylor, DB from Bowling Green. Cole Kelly, QB from Southeastern Louisiana. I really thought Cole Kelly was going to end up a Buffalo Bill. Because he's kind of like this. If they were both in a very, very dark room, you might confuse Cole Kelly for Josh Allen. he just seemed like a guy who would be interesting for them to develop behind him. Wouldn't have shocked me either if he ended up with the Giants, but Washington, interesting. Drew White, linebacker from Notre Dame, could make their team. Curtis Hodges, tight end, Arizona State. Could see him making the team. Trey Walker, linebacker, Idaho. Kyrick McGowan, wide receiver from Georgia Tech. And Jacob Panswick, defensive end from Michigan State. That is all of your undrafted players. Some of them a couple times because apparently they couldn't figure out which team they went to. Or couldn't decide which team they wanted them on. I don't know. Out of that, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, trying to remember everyone I was looking at. The Cowboys, the Dolphins, man, no wonder I was hearing so much about the Dolphins. Cowboys, Dolphins, Raiders. Was it the Raiders? No, it wasn't the Raiders. Oh, no, it was the Raiders. Cowboys, Dolphins, Raiders. Definitely, I would say probably the top three groups here. The Saints as well. Really like the Saints undrafted class. If I'm going to find a fifth one here. I really like the Eagles class a lot. Who was it that had the two? I'm trying to remember who had both or all the running backs. Oh, and the Colts. The Colts would probably be up there too. Those were the 6 best undrafted classes in my opinion. So, that being said, well, don't need to pull up my YouTube. With that being said, that's, I guess, the show for this afternoon. I've bored y'all enough going, spending probably like an hour or half an hour or so on undrafted team players. But a lot of those guys are going to make rosters. Like I said, I think the Cowboys, Colts, Raiders, Dolphins, Eagles, and there was another team, and I just totally, blanked already after naming a bunch of those. Really good undrafted classes that I think are going to have players that could impact their teams immediately. So, that being said, I'm going to get off of here. I will catch y'all tomorrow morning. Hopefully tomorrow at 8 a.m. rather than closer to like 8:15 or 8:20 or whatever it was this morning at 8:30. So, see you tomorrow.